So if you're like me and have been on the internet for a little while, you've probably heard of something called a worm on a string. Now, I learned how to make one by crochet, so I'm here to teach you how to do that now. It's very simple and crochet is very easy to learn. Now, you're going to need a loom if you want to do it the way I am right now in this video. You can also use your fingers if you choose. It's the exact same method. The loom size does not matter and your finger size does not matter either. Now if you're using a loom like me in the video, you'll notice that one of these pegs sticks out. That's where we're going to start off. If you're using it on your fingers, I recommend using your thumb. Now you're going to need some yarn. The thickness of your yarn or the thinness of your yarn does not matter. How much yarn you use does not matter either. It all depends on how thick, how long you want your worm. Now, you're going to need to tie a simple knot on this little peg. I stopped at this yellow mark so I could have a decent sized end for my worm. This is the back end of the worm, so it doesn't matter how pretty it is because it won't have the face. Simple knots or whatever knots you use are perfectly fine. Tying a knot on this peg just makes sure that the yarn does not slip when you're trying to crochet it. Now, to get a normal sized worm on the string, you're just going to need 3 pegs or use your 3 fingers. It's very simple and all you need to do is just loop your yarn around those 3 pegs. Make sure the inside of the yarn is facing the inside of the loom. So that means that little band there where they're connected has to face the inside or it'll be incredibly hard to loop. Now you're going to push those down and make sure your yarn isn't too loose. So now we're going to work on the next row of yarn. You're going to take your yarn from that last peg and wrap it around. For this first time, you're going to need to wrap it around twice and then wrap it around the other pegs. Make sure you hold on to your yarn because letting it loose will make the yarn come out and you'll have to re-loop it. Now, like I said beforehand, make sure that band is on the inside of the loom so you can loop stuff. Make sure yours looks something like mine. Like I said, it's okay if that last peg there has an extra thick band around it so you can loop on the inside. That's perfectly fine and it won't happen again until maybe the end of your worm. It's not that big of a problem and it's totally okay. Now you're going to need one of these crochet hooks. I've noticed that a lot of these are thicker in stores for more hand crocheting. If you're using it on your fingers, you don't need this type of hook. You can just use your fingers because the yarn will be looser. If you don't have access to one of these, I recommend maybe a rainbow loom hook or just a thin curved object such as like a paper clip or something like that. Something sturdy enough to hold your yarn though. You don't want your metal breaking and you don't want your yarn breaking. So you're going to take your hook and go to the peg that has the string still attached to it. You're going to loop this bottom white layer over this pink layer. As you see, it looks a bit difficult, but it's totally fine. Just keep looping that until you've got it. Now, since this one has 2, loop both of those strands of yarn and it'll be fine. This is the process you repeat for the entire worm until the end. You just push those pegs down after that too. So once your pegs are pushed down, you have your first layer done. So you're going to repeat the same thing for the next couple of layers until you're happy with the length of your worm. Of course, you're not going to see progress immediately, but if you keep working at it, it shouldn't take too long since it's only 3 pegs and it goes by pretty fast. The length of the worm is totally up to you. It can be short, it can be extremely long. It's all up to you because it's your worm and you're making it. So I've made 2 more of these worms in the past, and I've noticed that you probably want to take that little knot on that peg down right about at the 3rd or 2nd layer. It's only good to hold the first 2 layers, and once it's done after that, it's totally useless, so you can take it off and then you'll have your tail of the worm. I keep going for a while, so I'm going to show you just a close-up of what I'm doing and everything. For your hands, everything is the same process, so I'm just going to leave it here and take some photos of close-ups so you can see exactly the whole process. This is what your first layer should look like, very simple, having the knot and peg. This is what your loop should look like, make sure that band is facing the inside, that is very important. And this is what it looks like when looping it over. You just pick it up and put it over the peg. It's super simple. make sure you push those pegs down once you're done so you can go into the next layer. I have a time lapse of me making my worm longer since I figured watching me just loop and crochet for 5 hours wouldn't be long enough, and I'm joking on the 5 hours, but it didn't take me more than 15 minutes. If your worm's not pretty enough or it's not good enough for your first try, that's totally fine. Crochet isn't perfect the first time, and you'll just need to practice more. And since you're only using a little bit of yarn for these worms, you can make a lot out of a whole ball of yarn. Like I said beforehand, I do like using leftover yarn when I'm making these, and you can totally use that as well. So I finished the rest of my worm off camera after that time lapse. It wasn't much more. So once you're done, you should probably have a little bit of string left and these 3 pegs. Now you're going to take your hook and loop one of these pegs over to the middle one. And then you're going to do another row by wrapping the string around the next peg, and then just looping those like normal. So once you're done with that, you're going to take that other side peg and move it over to the middle. And then you're going to loop that like normal as well. Now with that baby string you have left over, you're going to loop that last peg through the string. You're going to probably just extend that a little bit, it shouldn't take too much, and then just push that string through. And then you're just going to pull it out and you should have your worm done. Now I like to give it a little extra support and a tighter nose look, so I just do another simple knot on top of it, and then I'll trim up his nose to make it a little shorter because I don't think they're that long, but you can have it as long as you like. After this I will glue some, or hot glue some googly eyes onto it. I did not film that because I assumed you knew how to attach googly eyes onto a piece of yarn. If you want to see that, I'll put it in another video about worms and a string, but for right now that's all you need to do. So after that your worm should be fairly complete. So now that I have my googly eyes hot glued and removing any of the strings from the hot glue, they're done. Some yarn will circle in a bit and cave in to make it a little bit more tubey, but this one turned out pretty flat. I think he's cute. You can call yours whatever you want, but I think I'm gonna call this one Confetti Cake, and he is the brother of Patricia and Small Intestine. I'll do another video on how to make yours multicolored and a more in-depth tutorial on how to do them on your fingers. Multicolor yarn is good for your beginning worm instead of using 2 different colors of yarn like this. It is perfectly simple to use since it's only on 1 spool and you're done. It's not technically on a string, it is made out of string and it does have a back string, but if you don't want to do the magic tricks and such, I think it's fine. Bye bye!